Richard Allen and our founders left a legacy for us to protect. C.T. Vivian and John Lewis did likewise. All demonstrated that our work is never done. So as we approach November 3rd, remember the words of the late John Lewis, a soldier of freedom from the age of 19 to the age of 80. Our vote is our voice. We must never be silent. Join with AMEV Alert as we tell others that voting does make a difference. Go to www.ame-alert.org for a step-by-step process on mobilizing voters, on educating persons to vote, and on voter registration. My name is Clement W. Few, presiding bishop of the 5th Episcopal District, and I approve this message.
Welcome to the latest episode of the TCR Dialogue. I am your host, Chuck Hobbs, bringing you greetings from Tallahassee, Florida, and the Bethel AME Church under the leadership of Reverend Julius McAllister, and from the 11th District, which is under the leadership of Bishop A.J. Richardson. We have a good show for you this afternoon. Looking forward to speaking to Reverend Dr. Silvester Beaman, as well as Pastor J. Edgar Boyd. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. For me, it's still morning here and on the West Coast. But
of course it is. Indeed it is. And with that, I would like for you two to introduce yourselves to our audience, starting with Reverend Dr. Beaman, and then Pastor Boyd to you.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm the Reverend Dr. Silvester Beaman. I am pastor of Bethel AME Church in Wilmington, Delaware, part of the 1st Episcopal District. Glad to be on.
Yes, sir. Pastor Boyd?
Pastor J. Edgar Boyd, Senior Minister, First AME Church in Los Angeles, and just happy to be a part of this audience today. And we're so honored to have the promo by Bishop of the 5th District, Bishop Clement W. Few.
Very good. Gentlemen, we are so happy to have you this afternoon. And what we want to start off discussing is that both of you have had personal interactions with the Democratic ticket. Vice President Joe Biden, who we hope within 1 week will be President-elect Joe Biden, as well as Senator Kamala Harris, who we hope this time or a little bit later next week will also be Vice President Kamala Harris. With that, I'd like for both of you to describe your initial interactions with these two individuals. And I'll start with Dr. Beaman, and then Pastor Boyd will shift to you. Dr. Beaman, what was it like first meeting Vice President Joe Biden?
Well, I came to Delaware as pastor of this church in 1993, the summer of 1993. And because Delaware is such a small state, influence and access is something that leadership enjoys. And Bethel has been a leading church in this community for 175 years. So as soon as I arrived, the leaders both on a national level in our government, state, county, and city all contacted me, and Senator Biden was one of them. And so our friendship has been a long-standing friendship since 1993 when he ran for president in 2008. I traveled with him and was a supporter then until we had nominated then Senator, now former President Barack Obama.
Very good. Pastor Boyd?
Yes, I was privileged to meet Senator Kamala Harris at a time when she was running to become the district attorney in San Francisco. I was a pastor of San Francisco then. And understanding that the population of San Francisco, which at one time was quite diverse. Blacks enjoyed it back in the 1951, 52, and the early 50s. They enjoyed about 18% of the population. However, today they're trying desperately to find 4% of the population. And not that the population in general has declined, just the number of Black persons in the city have declined. And crime was a big factor within the Black or African American community, pushing many of the middle class Black families out of the city of San Francisco, over into the East Bay side, and then further out east towards Sacramento in that area, and then some moving even back down to the southern part of the country, simply because they knew that the windfall profits that they had made on real estate that perhaps they bought when they came out for jobs in the shipyard industry back immediately following World War II. Had begun to escalate just tremendously, and so they could sell a house there and go and buy one in the south part of the country at a steal at twice the size. So we knew we needed some Black representation in government. And it was at a time when we were enjoying the presence of Willie Brown, who had been the Speaker of the Assembly in California for so long. They had to change the law and put in term limits just to get him out of office. But he came and ran for office as the mayor of San Francisco and did a tremendous job. So Kamala Harris, her bid to become the first district attorney in San Francisco was tremendous, and she did a great job. She was elected in November of 2003, and she made history by becoming the first woman, the first Black woman, the first woman of Asian descent, and she came in and just changed the world. And she wanted to be smart on crime. She was known to be tough and hard on crime, but she wanted to be smart on crime. So she organized what we call a back on track. She called it a back on track program. And she asked me to serve as one of the community advisors on the board, helping young people to take advantage of options to crime and to better their life. So that's how I began my relationship with her. And then later on, when she became the Attorney General for the state of California, she went into the assembly in Sacramento and worked with the legislators there to initiate what we call RIPA. It's Racial and Identity Profiling Act, which came out and provided a way for data to be collected on all of the stops. If any person stopped, getting as much data on them as you possibly could. And when that data was actually revealed, we found out and discovered that that Blacks were not as largely represented in criminality by having contraband in their presence when they were stopped as were whites. And so that whole myth of that was just gone. And so it underscored the fact that racial profiling was going on, and then this implicit bias or outright racism that existed oftentimes with many of the law enforcement officers was in place. So she asked me to serve on that RIPA board as the clergy person representing Los Angeles. And for 4 years, I served there helping to make some changes and to visit with people who are hurting in communities throughout the state of California.
Pastor Boyd, let me follow up on your last point. Has it surprised you over the last year and a half, both when Senator Harris was running for president and now as the vice presidential nominee, has it surprised you that there has been pushback from the left, from actually a number of Blacks, particularly Black men, with regards to her career as a prosecutor and attorney general? What I keep reading and hearing and seeing is a number of brothers who are saying, well, she locked up the brothers and therefore she's not for the Black community because she locked up the brothers. And I always try to push back on that narrative, which is that, you know, while there still are sentencing disparities that we need to address in this country, at the same time, the majority of the brothers, as they keep pointing out, that are committing crimes against other brothers and other Black people. And so with that in mind, has that kind of shocked you that there have been people who are questioning her Black bona fides, so to speak, because of the fact that she served as a prosecutor and later as the attorney general?
We would not like to see the industrialization of criminality expanded anywhere in our country. The school to prison pipeline that has been so active and somehow or another finding a way to commercialize the prison system or the incarceration system for the gains of those who come in as entrepreneurs, that's wrong. Ethically and morally, I believe that is wrong. incarcerating persons just because they're black is wrong. But however, on the other side, if you commit a crime, then laws are made to govern human behavior. And the law should not be interpreted as to relate or reflect to any particular color or ethnicity. The law is for everybody. So if you commit a crime, you should be prepared to pay the penalty for committing that crime if you're caught. And if that is the case, then nobody who has committed a crime and has to pay the penalty really should holler about that. We cannot, I don't think any top cop, whether the district attorney or whether attorney general of a particular state, or for that matter, attorney general of the United States of America, none of them can afford to be laxed on the enforcement of the law, because laws were put in place to govern human behavior. If the law is insensitive, if the law is wrong, or if the law is overbearing, then let's change the law. But the law that is in place, everybody should abide by it. Now, I understand that we're disproportionately economically disproportionately represented in our own wealth. We're only 10% of the wealth of Black families across the country. But if we commit a crime because we are trying to feed our family, or trying to economically further our own plight and our own cause, that's one thing. But the options were available. As Senator Harris did when she was in the district attorney's office in San Francisco, and the attorney general of California. She did diversion programs. She helped people to find options to crime, to get back in school, to get training, and get prepared to hold jobs, and become prepared to take care of the children that you raised and brought into life. So she has some marvelous programs. And yes, she pushed the law, as she should have pushed the law. She was served, she was elected to do that, and she did her job. And if she did her job there, I think she'll do her job wherever she goes. History shows that.
Yes, sir. Gentlemen, I also want to pose the question that faith has been a key element of the lives of both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They speak about it easily, Joe Biden being a Catholic, and Kamala Harris has talked about the role of faith throughout her life. I want to start with you, Dr. Beaman. Based upon your observations of Joe Biden, what does that inform you in regards to his relationship with God, and where that would lead him as being a potential leader should he be elected next week? You're on mute, Dr. Beaman. Okay.
I appreciate how you formed the question. The fact that you said that both of them can speak easily about their faith. As we all know, as people of faith, that our faith is greater formed and forged in adversity. And Vice President Biden certainly has had that experience with the death of his wife and daughter just before he was sworn in, and his sons being hospitalized at that time, and what that meant to him, and how he speaks of that very easily. Had it not been for his faith in God, he's not sure that he would have made it at that time. He was reared in a very strict Roman Catholic household. Remembering his mother, I did not know his mother well, but she was alive in the early parts of my ministry here in Delaware. His mother was, a strict Roman Catholic who upheld the faith and its tradition, and she seared that into her children, so that when Vice President Biden, then newly elected Senator Biden, came face to face with that tragedy, it brought him through. But that, not only that situation, but his own battle with cancer, when his life was hanging in the limbo because of his cancer diagnosis, he held on to his faith, and his faith brought him through. Having been friends with his son, Bo Biden, very good friends. I'm sitting in my boardroom here at Bethel Church, and in this very room, Bo and I struck the hammer, and he decided to run for Attorney General. And we met many a times in this when he decided that he would join the reserves and so forth. And it was during wartime. Vice President Biden then and his wife held on to the safety of their son who was doing his duty when others who would not go at wartime to serve their country, Vice President Biden's son did. And when he came face to face with his own cancer situation, I was there with the vice president, there with his children and his wife, and prayed with them as they held onto their faith, and it brought them through. I was one of the only Protestant clergy persons that participated in the homegoing. And so I've seen Vice President Biden come through very difficult situations, clenching on to his faith in God and the Lordship of Jesus Christ. And so when he talks about his faith, it's not, there's nothing phony about it. He is sincere, and he would bring that kind of faith, not as a Roman Catholic president, but as a president who has a real relationship with God through prayer, through struggle, through death, through sorrow. He would be a kind of president that would look to the Lord and would speak. His faith would help him speak to the issues of being the president of the United States.
Thank you, Dr. Beaman. Pastor Boyd, what have been your observations with regards to Senator Harris and her faith walk?
Let me start by reflecting on the fact that Kamala Harris is a child of a Jamaican born man and an Indian born mother. And during the early part of her life, her mother and her father are separated. And so she was then raised partially by her mother, but her mother was also a physician who was working on a special project, almost like she was trying to discover the equivalent to a vaccine for coronavirus. She's working on a very special project, and it took her out of the city, out of the state, and sometimes out of the country on long extended projects and research. And so Kamala was left to actually be raised much in part by her aunt and her uncle. And she attended as a small girl many churches throughout the East Bay and the Oakland and the Berkeley areas. And she sang in choirs. On Easter Sunday, she stood before the congregation and recited resurrection speeches and other kinds of things. So she was raised up in institutions of faith. She understood very clearly that the strong faith of her mother and the strong faith of her uncle and her aunt also was embedded in her. She went to church on many occasions, and the tragedy of having the family, her parents separated and split apart. She even as a child learned to lean on to her faith connection and to realize that even in the absence of them as a parental figure or institution before her, yet she could realize that God takes care of and God provides for those who might not get what they need from the parental institution. And I think it was that kind of faith that just persevered in her. She grew up in a tough community. She learned how to be tough, but at the same time, she learned how to depend on God and to relate and to resort to God in times of intimate need. And it was that kind of a relationship, I believe, that helped her in her conversations with me about faith. She understood the power of faith. And many times we've had discussions about what faith is. And we had a discussion about justice and what justice is and what justice meant in a biblical sense and what it meant in a theological sense and what justice means for us in America in a civil sense. So that kind of faith embodied itself in her from school up into the time she went to University of California at Berkeley, and then went on to Howard University in Washington, D.C., a historically Black institution. As a matter of fact, the next vice president, I hope and pray, and many of us do, will actually be a person who actually went to a historically Black college, University of College. And she's a member of the Alpha Kappa sorority. She understands faith. She understands God and God's role. And every time she's in town here in Los Angeles, she's a participant in membership of First Amen Church here in Los Angeles. We're just happy about that. She's down to earth, so she knows her faith is something that reflects who it is she is, because it relates to her and her dependence upon God and her dependence upon the Creator of all things. And so it's been reflected in all of her decisions: fairness, equity, justice, honor, and compassion. And all those responsibilities tempered with compassion helps to boast and to buoy up the faith that resides inside of her.
Indeed. Dr. Beaman, your church was recently in the middle of a controversy due to its placement in a campaign ad for President Donald Trump. Can you talk about that with our viewers this afternoon?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I get insulted by President Trump saying that Senator Biden, or I'm sorry, former Vice President Biden had bunkered down in his basement here in Wilmington, Delaware. When the truth of the matter is, as soon as things started unraveling around the nation, and certainly here in Wilmington regarding the George Floyd murder, Vice President Biden had hit the streets. He was out talking to crowds and trying to understand people and understand what was going on. As a result of that, he called one of my members, President Tony Allen, who's the president of Delaware State University, and asked if I would open up Bethel Church for him to have a sit-down conversation with faith leaders and community activists. And of course, I said yes. He's known me. He's known the role of my church here in this city over the past 27 years, and how when there was social unrest that we gathered at Bethel, it was the chosen site for the faith community to come and sit down and discuss various issues. And so it was a natural fit for him to call and request Bethel. And so when he came, he did exactly that. I would like to also note that while former Vice President Biden was at a church listening to faith leaders and community activists regarding the racial social unrest in our nation, the president was simultaneously almost gassing protesters so that he could have a photo op at a church that he was not invited to, and whose pastor and denominational leaders were insulted by that gathering. No, Vice President Biden came and he stated up front, I just want to hear what you all are saying and how this is impacting you and what should my role be. And we immediately began addressing that issue and said, as president, we expect him to do A, B, C, and D regarding violence against Black and brown people from the police. We said at that time we felt that the policing across the nation was broken, and that it was not because every police officer is rogue, but that there are rogue police officers who insult the shield that they are wearing. And subsequently, we needed the police to police the police. And we also mentioned at that time that we wanted him to nominate an African American woman. And as you can see, he took that to heart. And so what happened was some of the PAC that was supporting, that is supporting, I should say, President Trump, captured some of that video and misrepresented it to the community that we were supporting violence and thuggery, and actually called us thugs. And around that particular altar, praying for the president, was a U.S. Congresswoman, 2 college presidents, pastors who all had, majority of them had terminal degrees, the Wilmington Urban League president, you name it. We were people around the altar who are honorable, and to be cast as thugs and what have you, it was very offensive. And we shot off immediately to the national news media that were covering that particular incident and demanding that there be an apology to Bethel Church and to all of those folk who were around that altar, who with good intentions and all of our background and what we bring to social justice ourselves, and to that moment specifically regarding the death of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and Brother Arbery, we felt that that was a mischaracterization. We believe that after that, that particular video was taken down, or at least I had people trolling and policing the internet. They did not see it anymore. So again, juxtaposed to the president being a strong man and bullying protesters, Vice President Biden had conversations with protesters on the street, not from the bunkering down, as the president says, in his basement here in Wilmington, but he was out in the streets. And then he asked to come to a church. He did not take it upon himself to just show up. He called and asked. And I must say, when he came, he sat and took copious notes about what we felt, how we were feeling, and gave directives to him that if elected, and even if not elected, but if elected, and we're hoping that he is elected, that he should do A, B, C, and D regarding some of the issues confronting the African-American community, because the shooting of unarmed Black people is really a social economic issue as well. And to address what's happening to us at the hands of police also means to address these social economic issues confronting Black and brown people in America.
Yes, sir. Gentlemen, as Black men, I have noticed over the last few weeks that a number of the polls that you see on traditional media, on mainstream media, and even on Fox News are suggesting that President Donald Trump stands to potentially raise his percentage points among Black men. Last time in 2016, I believe it was approximately 13% of brothers that supported Donald Trump. They are projecting anywhere from 13 to 20% of Black men casting ballots this fall for President Trump. How does that hit you? What do you think about it? Last week, there was a big brouhaha because the rapper Ice Cube from out your way, Pastor Boyd in LA, made some comments that were construed by many to be an endorsement of President Trump. He has since said that he did not endorse the Trump campaign, but was interested in trying to engage in dialogue with both sides. Similarly, another rapper on the East Coast, 50 Cent, at one point seemed to endorse Donald Trump, and then a couple of days later, he switched his mind and said that he is not endorsing Donald Trump. So I want to talk to both of you gentlemen, and I want to start with Pastor Boyd first with regards to what are your thoughts about projections that maybe as many as 20% of Black men may be supporting Donald Trump this fall. Pastor Boyd?
Thank you, Chuck. Great question. I think a great observation. When you look at Kanye West, look at 50 Cent, look at Ice Cube, and look at some other prominent Black men in entertainment, one or two out of sports, who may have made ovations toward Donald Trump or supporting his agenda or Republican causes. Perhaps it's out of Black men in America and their fight or their struggle to find their own place and to find justice and to find fairness and find access to capital or access to the institutions that help to preserve and to further life, and for them to have been so many times disappointed. The ones who fall in the breaches of law enforcement at the hands of rogue police officers and the like, oftentimes Black men. Black men have a tough time in the employment industry, have a tough time finding access to capital for the opening and establishment of small businesses. They have a tough time in getting insurances for certain kinds of things. That there's a redlining in the communities as it relates to loans and insurance coverage. So being disappointed by many, and I've heard a lot of Black men say that the 8 years of presidency and administration of President Barack Hussein Obama did little to help Black men, but they really didn't look at the statistics and to know that the employment of Black men and Black men level of employment was much higher at the end of Barack Hussein Obama's term in 2016 than it is now, 4 years after that under the administration of Donald Trump. So with the disappointment that some Black men have seen across the country and across the lines, it may be understandable that some of them would be duped by the president making statements that Blacks in America have benefited under his administration more than they have under any presidential administration, except that of Abraham Lincoln. And stuff and phrases and statements like that have been made as subtle attempts to reach out and to find that those who have been disappointed, sometimes under Democratic and Black administrations, not only nationally but statewide and in local communities, that they might have an opportunity to go into the camp of a Donald Trump leadership and be better served. We all know that's a myth, and we all know that the selfishness of this president and his entire administration is motivated and focused mostly and predominantly for the service of the best interests, his own self-interest. That's really what he's after, and the service of the best interests of those who follow him, those who become his base, his cronies and his supporters. We're heartened and we're disheartened by the fact that some Black men have come to that notion. But I think the Black community now has begun to circle wagons around them and to assure and to reassure them that the solidity, that the united front and the unity of the Black community is best served when we stick together, we stand together, and we fight together, we struggle together, and we speak together. And the voice, the message has to come from us in a united front. And we have to elect those whom we feel most qualified and will best serve our interests and the interests of those who are near and dear to us. But at the same time, once we elect them, we have to make the same diligent efforts in helping to call them to question and call them to accountability and to responsibility for the positions that they now hold as it relates to the best interests of those who elect them. So Black men, we're growing and we're putting our arms around them and helping every community in the Black front has to come in and find our own place and have to make certain that we provide the kind of opportunity for preparation for the education that everybody needs to have access to. And once you get educated, then we need to start talking about jobs and job opportunities, and everybody needs to push that agenda. And once we do that, we need to find out ways to get in and to help to stimulate the economy, the economics in our own communities by owning and operating our own businesses. Jesse Jackson said many, many times, nobody can help us to save us for us, but us, understanding that our best interests can best be served by us. But we have to have access to the capital. So we say to Black men who may feel that they have not been served, let's have this conversation. Let's make certain that we hold persons who are accountable, persons who have demonstrated the commitment to come back and to serve interests and to make certain that what they do is for the best interests of those whom they seek to serve. And so as they're seeking to serve us, they're seeking our vote. Let's stand together and let's find the very, very best person to do that. And nationally, I believe that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the best two to meet and serve our interests. And so we're going to be holding them accountable to coming back now and help us to bridge those gaps that might not have been bridged, and to connect those dots that may not have been connected in the past, so Black men can take their own place in American society with dignity, and they can be the father of their children. They can be the husband to their wives. They can be the man that they ought to be in the community, in our churches and our community organizations and other institutions that are vital and important to our own cause.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pastor Boyd. Dr. Beaman, what are your thoughts about that, about the numbers of Black men that are projected to support Donald Trump this fall?
Let me say, first of all, that I endorse and sign on to everything that Dr. Boyd said. With that being stated, let me suggest this. Polls don't vote. People do. If we listened to polls in 2016, we would not have the likes of Donald Trump as president. We've got to get fired up and take people to the polls. I don't believe it. And maybe, I'm being a bit sophomoric. I don't believe that those polls are correct. Ice, T, and 50 cents do not represent the majority of maybe a very minority, a sliver minority of African-American males. I would say to those brothers, are you better off? Remember when Donald Trump stood up and insulted the African-American community and said, what the hell do you have to lose? What the hell do you have to lose? And I would say to those brothers today, ask that question. Are you better off today after 4 years of Donald Trump? And what did we lose? We have lost lives because of his inactivity and his boorish ways regarding COVID-19 and the policies he set. When you look at the infection rate, I don't remember the number, but I believe it's like 1 in 5, and it's commensurate with death. So what do we have to lose? We've lost people, our husbands, our sons, our nephews, our mothers, our daughters, our wives. We've lost them because of 4 years of Donald Trump. What did we have to lose? We've had a resurgence of white supremacy and hate groups that Donald Trump fails to denounce and even makes apologies for, that they are now emboldened themselves and feel legitimated by the president's dog whistling. How can a brother sign on to someone who has done that to our community? We can go on. Jobs, as Pastor Boyd stated, incarceration, as Pastor Boyd stated. There are so many. What the hell do we have to lose? Much. And because of that, my brothers, I would say to you that you need to not be duped by the policies and the pronouncements of Donald Trump, who is a liar. It's proven fact. He does not tell the truth. And whatever he is saying to convince you that he has your best interest, I'm going to ask you, are you better today than you were 4 years ago under the policies and the posturing of this egomaniacal, narcissistic president who's only concerned about himself? Only concerned about himself and his closest cronies, which are the super wealthy. He has done nothing for the common man. He has done nothing for the average African-American male. And if he has, then if you feel that way, go vote. But we're going to outnumber you because we are fired up and we're going to the polls and we are going to defeat this president.
Yes, sir.
Chuck, let me respond to that. Thank you, Dr. Beaman.
Sure.
Eloquently done. As you know, Kamala Harris is a graduate of Howard University, HBCU, and it has been the commitment on her and the Vice President Biden's part that once they're elected, they're going to be setting aside hundreds of millions of dollars that would be earmarked especially for HBCUs, for historically Black universities and colleges. And these institutions, we know historically, has always done a great job in preparing men and women from the Black community for responsible leadership, responsible presence, and responsible access to things that make a difference for the quality of life for all of us. So if that is the case, if you look back in the end of the 1970s, early 1980s, those persons who served in state legislatures, those persons who served in city positions as mayors and members of city councils, those who served on positions within the county boards of supervisors across the country, and those who were serving in Congress, those black persons, 85% of them were graduates from historically black colleges and universities. Those persons represented the very best product from learning in a pedagogical institution that prepared people for quality participation in life. And to understand that if we're going to change things, it's going to begin with education, with equipping the mind, and then coming back to measures of faith, equipping the heart, and then coming back with training and equipping the hands, so everybody can find their own access to things that's going to make a difference in life for themselves and for their families as a whole. So I agree with Dr. Beaman. You can't look at what this administration has done and have one iota of a sense of assurance and comfort that he's going to do anything. A leopard does not change his spots. And what you saw in Donald Trump's statements prior to his being elected in 2012 is the same thing that's in the heart of Donald Trump's mind right now. If he could catch the women by their vaginal parts and move them and do anything with them he wanted to, then if that was in his heart, then a leopard does not change his spots. We have to understand that we cannot be lied to, and we've been lied to for so long. We've got to change the way we listen and the way we respond to what people say, and the dog whistles that he makes across the world, not just for some, but it's for those who support him in everything that he does. So I agree. We can't. We're going to stand up on election day and do the right thing and make certain we get a change.
Yes, sir. Gentlemen, some prognosticators suggest that Black Americans that are under the age of 30 are at risk of not showing up in massive numbers to vote this week and heading on into election day next week. Similarly, there are a number of studies, some anecdotal, some of them actual studies, that suggest that individuals who are under the age of 30 are not showing up in the pews either, going to church. Church attendance is down across the country, across denominations. But I want to ask you both, what are some things that you are doing or seeing to, number one, increase individuals coming to church? And I know that with the coronavirus being what it is, a lot of times we have had to shift, and the clergy has had to deliver services through televised type services as opposed to being able to be in person. But with that in mind, what are some things that you are doing to encourage young people to get back into church? And then number two, get out and vote.
Can I address that first?
Sure. Go ahead, Dr. Beaman.
Very good question. And here at Bethel, we have a good number of, before Corona and even after Corona, we have, or during Corona, we have a goodly number of young adults, 30 and under, who come to church. And then we have some who were born, reared in the church, because Bethel is a youth-friendly church where we have over $800,000 we've spent on scholarship in the past 27 years to help our children get education. And so I'm dialoguing with them, and I ask, why are you here and why aren't you here? And I can conclude that, and I think this transfers into this political question as well. If you give young people a voice, if you take into consideration their concerns and their issues, they are issue driven, not as much ideologically driven. They're issue driven. They're concerned about things that are impacting their lives, their bills. They're paying back school loans. They're finding their voice. They're finding their place. They're starting their careers and so forth. Those are the things that are concerned, and they have a strong sense of social justice. They have a strong sense of what's right and what's fair. And so we've got to listen to them. We got to adhere to their voice. We got to include their agenda in our platform. And I believe because of this campaigning and some of the things that Vice President Biden and Senator Harris have done, that they're actually doing that. And there's going to be a refreshing turnout similar to 2008 and 2012, where we had great numbers of young African Americans and young people in general go to the polls to elect Senator Barack Obama. I believe that they are engendering that same kind of spirit because they are opening up and listening to, and in real ways finding solutions, well, including their agenda and finding solutions to the issues of our young people. So if we accept that negative demographic or reality, then of course we're going to lose our young people. But if we embrace it head on and decide to do something about it, and that is include them, listen to their agenda, include their agenda in our platform, then they will remain in the church and they will be at the polls on November the 3rd.
Indeed. Pastor Boyd, what are your thoughts about?
I thoroughly agree with Dr. Beaman. I'm just amazed at how God made us as people. God gave us sensory perceptors. Our taste is a sensory perceptor. Our smelling, our hearing, our seeing, our feeling, each of them are sensory perceptors. They help us to perceive things in reality as they actually are. As Robert F. Kennedy said, and echoing many who said it before him, he says, some people see things as they are and ask why. And then others dream about things as they should be and say, why not? I think every church has to not just sense things as they are now, but to perceive things as they ideally and ought to be and possibly can be with our engagement and with our help. So understanding that we sit and we listen to our young people. We help them to envision things that are possibilities. We tell them that there's no ceiling to their advancement, to their growth, and to their rise in whatever area of involvement they want to be in. We tell them that all the power in the universe is lined up for them, for their access and for their use and for their instrumentality and using them to elevate and to leverage themselves in the areas of opportunity and areas of achievement and areas of participation. And in that, we try and put in their minds that bold thought and that bold belief that you can become anything that God has made available in the world. And nobody should stop you. Nobody should try and block you or deny you access to the most radical dream or ideals that you have in life. So at Fame Church, we've organized everything that we do. We try and compartmentalize and structure it in such a way that anybody can look at it and follow it easily. So we have a commission. We have 8 commissions, but one of the commissions we have is the commission. It's actually called CSET. It's the Commission on Scholarships, Education, and Training. And it's not just set up to provide scholarships upon graduation, but we work with children in their preschool era. We work with them in their primary and their secondary educational pursuits, and we bring them together. We do college fairs, not sending them across the country, but we invite the institution, representatives from the institution, to come and bring pictures and bring statements and bring testimonies from those HBCUs or from those Ivy League colleges, those state schools across the country. We bring them, and the last one we had was last November, and we had over 1,300 young people on our campus for a full day, and we had big tents covering the entire parking lot and utilizing our buildings across the street to give them access to more than 80 schools and colleges. Some of them got scholarships from Bennett College, a full 4-year scholarship. 8 of them got full 4-year scholarship because we organized and we brought them together and we showed them that this can be done. We have persons who are volunteering on that commission who have a vast array of skills and credentials and experience, and they've brought all of that to bear right in our congregation so we can show that and give access to our young people. So we're investing in their life. We start with them when they're young. and we bring them all the way through, and we follow them in their college. We have also what we call a college call, and that college call is we have them write back to us and let us know how they're doing. We send them care packages during the tough times of their semester, of their quarter in school, so they always get a nice letter from home with some nice things that they can use, some parts of technology, thumb drives. We send them peanut butter and cracker sandwiches, all these other kinds of things that help them to keep their minds on education, training, and preparation, not to worry about the other kinds of things, and letting them know that we sent you off and we're going to support you in your ascent, and we would like for you to come back to our community and help now to cross-pollinate and to fertilize the opportunities for the young people alike. So those are the kinds of things we're doing as it relates to them, and as it relates to us pushing them and getting them prepared to become members who actually go up in the polls and pews and vote. That makes a difference. So we open up our doors so that they can be open for everybody. We try and involve our young people in every phase of life, on every board, every commission. We try and make certain that they're as much as humanly possible, cross-generational representation. On the board of trustees, we have to be 18 years of age and older. We make certain that a spot or 2 spots on the board is automatically set aside for them, and then more of them can win the election to the board of trustees, and so be it. We push that, and we demand that. And at the same point in time, we're working with the sheriff of the Los Angeles County to have persons who are actually in the last part of their incarceration period, and those who are there for nonviolent crimes, and those who are low risk for escape. If they can bring them to our churches on Sunday morning, so we can begin to welcome them into a worshipful atmosphere, so they know when they're released, they can come back to a community that has open arms and welcome them back in the community, and help them now to understand the error of their ways, and now to choose some new options and some different avenues and different ways, and pursue them in a holistic way. And that's really what we're after. We're trying to reach out to meet people, sense their condition, sense their problems, sense their fears, sense their lack of preparation, and just sense all of the things that we need to know about them, so we can help them to become all that God intended for them to be.
Amen. Amen. With that, I also want to ask you all this. We have a week left. If Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are fortunate to be elected president and vice president of the United States, what role do you believe that our denomination will be able to play over the next 4 years in helping them achieve many of the objectives that are important to us as individuals, as well as to our church? You want to start, Dr. Beaman, and then I'll shift back to Pastor Boyd.
Just quickly, I would want to suggest that we have to pivot access to influence. This would not be the first time that we've elected a president where AMEs have relationships. And so we have to pivot those, the access, because access is not power. You have to access and then be an influencer. So I would suggest that we pivot as a denomination, and that we say to the president-elect and vice president-elect, when they become the president and vice president, that we are going to be our ears to the streets, and we are going to be sociologists, if you will, as well as theologians, that we will see what's happening in our nation, and that we will then use our access as influence to say to the president and to the vice president that this is unacceptable, and here is our resolution. We are just not going to simply be invited to presidential events. We want to be able to pick up the telephone and call. And so, we got people like James Clyburn, who, in my mind, resurrected the Biden, the Biden president campaign, and so we ought to be able to use myself, Reverend Boyd, Bishop Jackson, who is a native Delawarean, who has known Vice President Biden for many years, and others, use their access for influence.
Indeed. Pastor Boyd?
Well, thank you, Chuck. And I agree with Dr. Beaman completely. Relationships are powerful. Once you get access and once you begin to influence outcomes, then that's really where your power starts. And if it's directed, if it's focused on the things that are right, I really think that that's where the opportunity really rests in its best point. A 205-year-old denomination as the AME Church is the first religious organization founded in America by a man of color, by people of color, and more specifically by people of African descent. That's the AME Church. Just its presence, its proliferation throughout the 50 states of our country, even in Alaska, even in Hawaii, as you may think them to be remotely configured in the territory. We have AME churches and AME presence there, so that's great. And to see that we have, as General Officer John Thomas can underscore, representation on 5 continents in the world. That's nothing to sneeze at. So there's a chance for the entrance into new relationships. There's a chance for us now to influence outcomes and influence decisions and influence the policy that best speak to our pain and our issues and our concerns, and open up doors and avenues and possibilities for advancement and for growth, and for our children to have a better life and have a better opportunity than perhaps our generations had. To just make certain that we make justice run down like water and righteousness will flow like a mighty stream. But that won't happen until we sit down and temper and construct and build the irrigation systems to make them flow and to make them move. So I think once they become elected president and vice president elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, then we need to applaud them for a minute, but then again we need to call upon them and we need to become the prophet that speaks to the king and make sure the throne fully understands what our needs are, where our pain is, and help them to understand that these things must be done, and it must be done with urgency. And if we do that, if we engage in that, I tell you that there's always a result. When Governor Gavin Newsom was elected as a governor of the state of California, we organized a group called the California African American Empowerment Council. And we've been able to get people in key positions, Black people in key positions that they've never been in before, in the area of justice, in the area of department heads and the heads of administration. The second most capitalized department in the whole governance and the whole economy of the state of California is that of transportation, called DOT, Department of Transportation, run by a Black American who is a native-born Nigerian. So we had a chance to influence that kind of presence. We are now working on a proposal now to administer $13.5 million for coronavirus testing, and that's being managed and being furthered by this African American Council that I currently serve as co-chair with the president of the state of California's NAACP, Alice Huffman. So she and I work together in bringing this group together as a grassroots group that represents every pocket of Black community across the state, all the way from the Bay Area down to San Diego and all throughout the Central Valley. So these kinds of connections, they're possible and they're always productive. And so that's the same kind of approach we need to make certain that happens once the Biden and Harris ticket is actually elected. And we have leadership in every walk of life, from our bishops, our presiding elders, our general officers, our pastors, and those who have history and those who have connection. We come on board and help to steer them into the areas where they can best help to serve our community. Now, I'm convinced that it's going to be a good time for America, because it's going to be a good time for Black people. When Black people do well, the nation will do well.
Amen. I want to thank you both for coming on this afternoon. I'm going to put you on the spot before we leave. What's your prediction? 7 days left. Will Joe Biden and Kamala Harris win, or are we going to see a second Trump-Pence term? I'm going to start with Dr. Beaman, and then Pastor Boyd, you tell me your prediction as well. Dr. Beaman?
November the 3rd, I'm predicting that before midnight, Joe Biden elected president, Kamala Harris vice president. It will happen on Wednesday, not Thursday, not Wednesday.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it looked like your screen froze for a minute, but let me echo Dr. Beaman. I am projecting. I'm almost willing to say a landslide election for the Biden-Harris ticket, but I'm certainly predicting a big majority on their part. Right now, with a 9 percentage point lead in the polls, I think this is going to resonate, and I'm believing that a lot of the early voting that has taken place, especially in the Black community, that people have really made up their minds, and it's going to show up on election night. Matter of fact, that night we're holding our own election night party in the sanctuary of Fame Church. There'll be about 25 or 30 of us there, but we'll be screening it out on YouTube, and we'll be doing our own celebration and our own projection, and our own prediction. So I echo. If we're going to be a good night for them both.
Indeed. From your mouths to God's ears. Thank you so much for what you both are doing, the leadership you're showing within the church. And it has been a pleasure for me to speak with you this afternoon. And I look forward to speaking to you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chuck. And thank you for what you do at Tallahassee at FAMU.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Beaman. And I'd also like to thank all of our viewers this afternoon. And I'd like to leave you with a few announcements. Number one, our producer, Tiana Freeland, is organizing a digital panel discussion on Black women in politics in Brazil. This panel will address the political legacy of Marielle Franco, a Black councilwoman from Rio de Janeiro, who was assassinated in 2018. So be sure to pay attention to that and look for the announcements for that very informative panel. You also can support the Christian Recorder by buying a subscription for $36 a year. Visit www.thechristianrecorder.com. Again, that's www.thechristianrecorder.com. Also, support the AME Church Publishing House for your church, school, and worship needs. Featured product is the Empowerment Syllabus. Visit www.amecpublishing.com. Again, that's www.amecpublishing.com. The Advent Devotional is now available from the Department of Christian Education. You can purchase it by visiting ameced.com. Again, that's ameced.com. Today's sponsors have been Reverend Marvin C. Zanders for Bishop 2021. And our guest, Reverend Silvester Beaman for Bishop 2021 as well. Now we will have our closing PSA by Sister Jackie DuPont Walker, I'm sorry.
Good morning. I greet you as a member of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and more than anything else, a member of the Christian faith. November 3rd is Election Day. It is one of the most important elections that may happen in our lifetime. We must make this difference. It's our watch, it's our time. Let's work together for victory to elect those who care about all of God's children. Let's go do it.
Thank you. A wonderful afternoon.
God bless you. Have a great one.
You too, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.